Welcome to another social and environmental studies lesson of the day. The lesson is for the upper basic level, and before we do our correction exercises, once again I am Bakar MC Sane, now coming to do the exercises before proceeding to our new lesson of the day. Now question number 1 reads, which physical feature in Senegal does the river Gambia flows? Which physical feature in Senegal does the river Gambia flows? The answer here is the Barakunda Falls. The Barakunda Falls. Number 2, name the main tributary of the Gambia. Name the main tributary of the Gambia. The answer is the Bintang Bolong. The Bintang Bolong, or you say the Bintang Creek. The Bintang Creek. Number 3, which stream is close to the southern boundary of the Gambia? Which stream is close to the southern boundary of the Gambia? The answer for question 3 is the Halahin Bolong. The Halahin Bolong, or the Halahin Creek. Number 4, one of the environmental hazards affecting the drainage of the Gambia is dash dash. One of the environmental hazards affecting the drainage of the Gambia is dash dash. The answer for question 4 is salt intrusion or saltwater intrusion. Salt intrusion or saltwater intrusion. All is accepted. Now, coming to our new lesson of the day, which is titled pollution. Pollution. Now, what is pollution, or define pollution? This is the act of allowing harmful things, especially waste, into the atmosphere or the water supply. Allowing harmful things into the atmosphere, and which is usually harmful to both the atmosphere as well as the living things living on that particular environment, and the harm even goes to the water supply as well. This water supply could be the supplies from our wells, boreholes, streams, taps, etc., etc. Now, what are the types of environmental pollution common in the Gambia? Here are the types. 1 is water pollution, 2 noise pollution, 3 air pollution, 4 land pollution. These are the major ones: water pollution, noise pollution, air pollution, and land pollution. Now, what are some of the causes of environmental pollution? What are some of the causes of environmental pollution? Now, one of them is industrial waste. In other words, the waste from the industries. Now, what are the industries that usually emitted this waste? Usually, these are the manufacturing industries, the ones called processing industries. Another cause of environmental pollution is bushfires. Bushfires, or some will call it bush burning. All is the same. Bushfires also is a major contributor. Next is dumping of refuse. Dumping of refuse. If you go to the dumping sites, one prominent dumping site in the Gambia is the Bakote dump site. Now, for those who visited the Bakote dump site, if you look at that particular place, like here is an image of one of the dump sites. If you look at the image of this dump site, it resembles that of the Bakote dump site, although it is not the Bakote dump site actually, but most of the refuse you are seeing here, if you move to the Bakote dump site, you will be seeing them. So basically, these are hazardous or dangerous substances which is harmful to both our soils, the vegetation cover, man, his animals, and generally it is not even good for the atmosphere or even the earth on which we live. Now, other causes of environmental pollution includes oil spillage. Oil spillage in where? In our ozones, seas, rivers, and other waterways. For example, when one visited the Atlantic ozone site along the hotel areas, what do you see? If you visited the Atlantic ozone sites, let's say around the Senegambia hotel area, what do you normally see usually? You will see different types of nylon bags. You will also be seeing some dead sea creatures. You will also be seeing at times even oil which is blackish in color, which has been already poured into the waters of the ozone. Remember, these are all harmful to not only the ozone, which is the Atlantic ozone, but it also discourages more tourists coming into the country. If you move to the seaside, for example, in the Gambia, there is no sea. But if you go to, for example, Libya, where there is the Mediterranean Sea. Now, some of these pollutants which could be found in the Atlantic ozone is also in the Mediterranean Sea. It is happening there as well. Rivers, for example, the River Gambia. If you move to the regions of the River Gambia, like from Bunyadu in the North Bank region, going further into the interior of the country, you will see some refuse or materials which are not definitely useful to the River Gambia, and not to talk of the creatures that are living inside the waters of the River Gambia. For example, the fish, the crabs, the shrimps, the lobsters, etc., etc. Now, if you move to other waterways, what are these other waterways? Like our drainage patterns. Ways that have been created for the easy flow of wastewater. For example, at the front of the NAWEC head office in Westfield, if you look at that side, there is a drainage channel. That drainage channel is for the passage of wastewater. And that channel is very, very useful, more especially during the rainy season, when at times there is that heavy downpour of rain. So sometimes even in our waterways, dumping is done there, which is completely unacceptable. Dumping should not be done in those waterways because it will block the free movement of water, and when the water is blocked, it is not moving freely. Obviously, there will be series of other problems like the demolition of people's buildings, other structures, and at worst, it can even lead to loss of lives and properties as well. Then another cause is emissions. For example, fumes, smokes. This emission usually is in a form of fumes or smokes. From where? From motor vehicles. For example, imagine in the Kanifing municipality alone, how many vehicles usually ply the roads in the Kanifing municipality? They are numerous, it's many. And all those vehicles usually emit what? Fumes, smoke from their engines. So all these are hazardous not only to humans, animals, but to the environment as well. Now, factories is another. If you move to Gambega, which is a brewery factory, Gambega is one example of a brewery factory where you will be seeing fumes from the chimneys of their machines. And those fumes usually goes into the atmosphere. And at times, part of the refuse from those factories is usually dumped at a site which is not environmentally friendly at all. Now, once again, this is the dumping site where you can see different classes of waste. You can see different classes of waste, and some of this waste can even be used in other ways that will be environmentally friendly, like the reusing aspect, the recycling aspect, and so on. Now, what are the effects of this environmental pollution? Remember, we said pollution is the release of harmful waste or substances into the atmosphere or our water supply. What are some of the effects when a particular place is already polluted, when a particular place is a friend to pollution now? The effects are causes ill health. Remember, ill health is different from total health. Pollution encourages ill health, and the moment there is ill health, sicknesses, diseases becomes part of the environment, and those diseases will be a part of humans, animals, and even other living things like our vegetation cover, our trees and plants, our crops, all are affected. Next is destroys the ozone layer. This is the layer which protects us from getting the direct heat of the sun, yes, which is found at a location which is very, very far from where humans and other animals are living. So according to scientists, this ozone layer is destroyed bit by bit by some of these pollutants, which normally emits during manufacturing of raw materials or during the dumping of refuse and the like. So when this ozone layer is seriously affected, may God forbid, when it comes to the worst, in fact, this can affect the skins of people, it can affect the skins of animals, and it will even cause blindness. It will even cause blindness. How blindness? Because when the ozone layer is depleted now, people will now receive the direct heat of the sun. According to the researchers in the area of geography, the moment the ozone layer is seriously affected, people will now be receiving the direct heat of the sun, yes, which is going to be very dangerous indeed to both the health and lives of people and animals on the Earth's surface. Now, another problem will be kills animals, including sea creatures, for example, fish, shrimps, lobsters, crabs, oysters. And we are seeing these problems happening when you move to the regions of the Atlantic Ocean. Another example still which can be given is Gunjur. Gunjur is a classical example. If you go to the Gunjur beach side, you will be seeing a series of dead fish, dead shrimps or crabs, oysters, lobsters, etc. And sometimes the unfortunate part of it is that some of those dead sea creatures usually comes from our own factories, and these factories will dump these dead creatures into the waters of the ocean, where there are living creatures already, and this is going to be very harmful to those living creatures, and the harm will also be extended to the people living within those communities. Now, the other problem is decreases the amount of oxygen in the air. Remember, in any environment where there is pollution, fresh air will not be adequate. Fresh air is not going to be adequate. And where there is pollution, remember, breathing becomes so uncomfortable because the number of pollutants you are getting into your system will not be so favorable. You don't even feel comfortable in that particular environment. So that will result to the attraction of communicable diseases, and even other harmful things will be part and parcel of that environment. It will even encourage the pathogens, disease-causing organisms to that particular environment. And of course, the end result of all these pollutants in our environment will be what? Diseases. Diseases will now become the order of the day. And like the saying, prevention is better than cure. Obviously, some of these pollutants can be prevented. There are various methods of preventing them or even minimizing them seriously. And among those methods, we have reduce, reuse, and recycle, as well as recover. All these are modern methods of reducing the effects of pollution in our environment. Now, here are other suggested ways. The ways of reducing the effects of pollution are: 1. Legislation at the National Assembly Authority. For example, at the Gambia National Assembly Authority, laws can be done so that people will be vigilant, people will be fully aware that when problems of pollution is encouraged by me as a citizen or a non-citizen of the country, obviously this is the law or the penalty attached. So it's among the ways. Next is create awareness. So the awareness here is about sensitization through the mass media, through radio talk shows, through the print media, for example, newspapers, awareness programs through the televisions. So all these are possible ways of reducing the effects of pollution. And of course, we are almost hearing some of the programs going on with regard to this problem, and part of it is highly done by the media houses. The next way is recycling of waste at dump sites. You remember I made mention of that. Recycling of waste at dump site is among the ways of reducing the effects of this pollution. Now, among the types of pollution is air pollution. Now, what is meant by the phrase air pollution? Air pollution refers to the release of harmful substances through the air into the atmosphere or the water supply. Now, mostly where air pollution happens, yes, the pollution will be part and parcel of the air or the oxygen that we breathe, or if you move to the regions of the drainage patterns, for example, regions where water moves, for example, areas of the ozone, regions of the river, or where there is a well or a tap or even a drain where wastewater usually moves. Now, usually you will see a kind of refuse which comes into contact with that water supply, and the moment the refuse comes into contact with the water supply, it encourages what? It will encourage air pollution. Rather, as time goes on, that particular area's oxygen flavor is going to change. It must change. For example, another example is fresh water. The moment fresh water comes into contact with a refuse, with a pollutant, as time goes on, the flavor of that fresh water will change. And as time goes on, the scent will even be changed, thereby changing the pollution content of that particular environment. Now, what are some of the causes of air pollution? Some of the causes are emissions from industrial plants. For example, the Banjul Breweries Limited, Gambega, which is in the Kanifing municipality, even Sankunsila's processing industry in the same Kanifing municipality. If you move to some of these industries, obviously you can be seeing some of the emissions from the chimneys of their machines, and all goes into the atmosphere or the supply. Even Brikama, where the jar oil cement factory is, where cement processing is done. That is, in fact, another classical example for the West Coast region, if you move to that side. And not to even talk of the Nawek powerhouse, which is in the same Brikama around the Kabafita layout. That is another classical example. Remember, pollution causes more harm than good. Yes, it causes more harm than good. So these places are classical examples. Another one is emissions from exhaust of vehicles. In almost all our towns in the Gambia, this emission from the exhaust of vehicles is in fact so rampant. It's very, very rampant indeed. In all the towns in the Gambia, be it an urban town or a rural town, or they all experience this particular cause, which is emissions from exhaust of vehicles. So that is another problem. Then the next is emissions from aeroplanes. For example, at the Banjul International Airport. Remember, at the Banjul International Airport, which is in Yundum, this problem is going on there because it's like it is the aeroplane park. Yes, the airport. So remember, the aeroplane also is just like any vehicle. It uses fuel, it uses machine, and all is operational, and the operation is usually aided because of the way the machine goes. But remember, the machine uses fuel as well as other materials, which at the end all leads to the pollution of that particular environment. Next is bush fires or bush burning, which is very common during the dry season. If you go to some of our 66 forest parks in the Gambia, usually This practice is very common there during the dry season. Yes, like Faba Forest, Kabafita Forest, Nyambai Forest, or Konoworo Forest, or say Wulumbam Forest. If you name them, up to 66 of them. So some of them are community forests, some are forest parks gazetted by the government of the Gambia. So if you move to those places, bushfires is a rampant practice. Yes, at the end, if you investigate or you move further to know the cause of it, at the end, the forestry officials will find it very difficult to get to an answer because usually the culprit is not seen. Another is the burning of coal, the burning of charcoal. That is also a common practice. Yes, it's also a common practice, and which the government is even finding it very difficult to eradicate, because some of the answers given by the respondents is that burning of coal or charcoal is their daily source of getting income. In other words, their livelihood depends on it, so they cannot leave it. So, but let's look at it carefully. Even though your livelihood depends on it, there are other choices, there are other alternatives that can be taken as a carrier, different from the burning of coal or the charcoal. Another is sandstorms. Sandstorms, if you move to the side of the Atlantic Ocean, you'll be seeing piles and piles of sand, sometimes at a place which is not the rightful place. Now, the next among the causes of air pollution, remember some are applicable in the Gambia, some are not applicable in the Gambia. Remember, we're talking about the environment, not only Gambian environment, but even the environment of other places as well. So when you look at this one, volcanic eruption, even though it's not an environmental hazard in the Gambia, but it is happening in other parts of Africa. Yes, it's happening in other parts of Africa. I can give names of countries like Kenya, Tanzania. Yes, Kenya and Tanzania, at times it happens there, where you have the mountain Kilimanjaro. Yes, so it is also a natural hazard affecting the environment. The next is bushfires or bush burning of coal, yes, as well as the other sandstorm I made mention of. What are you seeing here? Remember, I made mention of the brewery industries, like the breweries, Banjul Breweries Limited, Gambega, Sankunsila's factory, etc. Now, if you go to some of those factories, these are some of the images you will be seeing. You'll be seeing a big powerhouse. Yes. What are you seeing here? This is the chimney. This is the chimney of the industry, the chimney of the factory I was talking about. This chimney is where the smoke comes out. You can see, yes, the smoke emitting, going out. And where this smoke goes, it goes into the atmosphere. Yes, it goes into the atmosphere, and part of it even mixes with the water supply. Not only the atmosphere, this part of the smoke mixes with the atmosphere, and the smoke also affects the quality of our oxygen supply. Remember, this smoke affects the quality of our oxygen supply, which is highly needed by all the living things. Oxygen is highly needed by all the living things. Without it, there will be no life on Earth. So if that is affected by pollution, definitely that should be a cause for concern for us all. Now, the next, what are we seeing here? Volcanic eruption. You see, I made mention of volcanic eruption, which normally happens in mountains like Mountain Kilimanjaro. Yes. So when volcanic eruption happens, this is how, what are you seeing here? You are seeing the lava going, yes, which is the red hot liquid rock, the red hot liquid rock, the lava which flows. And this lava, of course, goes with too much of smoke, as you can see. In fact, this smoke is more dangerous than the smoke from the brewery industries. It is very, very hazardous to man, his animals, our vegetation cover, and even the soils in our environment. It is very hazardous indeed. And in any given place where this particular eruption is about to happen, usually it goes with signs. People will be alerted. So if there are inhabitants within the area, they will be advised by the environment officials to vacate and go elsewhere. So this is a classical example of volcanic eruption, which is also damaging the environment. if you look at this, what are we seeing here? This is bushfires. This is bushfires, which is a common practice in the Gambia during the dry season. You remember I made mention of some forest parks in the Gambia where this bushfires or bush burning is a common practice. So this is a classical example, and the moment bushfires becomes the order of the day in any given environment, remember the importance of a forest. Part of the importance of a forest is affected. Yes. For example, if the forest is serving as a source of food in the form of fruits for both humans as well as animals, when fire comes into contact with that forest, now the trees in that forest will not produce flowers leading to the formation of fruits. This will not happen. Now, not to even talk of the serving as a home for the wildlife. The habitat of the wild animals in that forest obviously will be affected, and this will also have an impact on our wildlife system in the country. Now, next, what are we seeing? Here we are seeing some lumps of what? Sand dunes. We are also seeing some lumps of sand dunes, which of course goes with plenty of dust particles. Here we are seeing plenty of dust particles. Wherever there is a sand dune, obviously there will be series of dust particles within that particular environment, more especially in the dry season. Even if a moving vehicle plies the area, you will be seeing a lot of sand particles in a form of dust just scattered in the open air. So any person, be it a human or an animal moving within this area, obviously may develop some respiratory infections, because you will not be moving to an area where sand dunes and its particles are scattered in the open air, and you say you are not going to breathe in that area unless you leave the area completely. That will be practically impossible. Huh? Now, what are some of the effects of air pollution? Some of the effects are, or the results. Where there is air pollution, what are the effects? What are the results? One, acid rain. It leads to acid rain. Our rainwater will not be normal. It will not be a normal rainwater. It will be a rainwater which comes into contact with the fumes, the smokes from various industries, the smokes from various factories, the pollutants from elsewhere. So this will result to the rainwater becoming acid. And the moment the rainwater becomes acidic in nature, that is not going to be favorable to the plants and the crops growing within that particular area. The next effect is poor visibility. Wherever there is air pollution in a form of smoke, now visibility is not going to be excellent. Visibility is not going to be very good. It's going to be poor indeed. In other words, seeing each other. And where visibility is poor, what is the next outcome? Accidents might result. Where visibility is poor, accident might result. That is another problem. Then the next effect is degrades or depletes ozone layer. So as you can see, another effect of this air pollution is that it degrades or depletes the ozone layer. That is the layer which protects people from getting the direct heat of the sun. And the next effect is global warming, which is the changes in the overall world temperatures, which is the changes in the overall world temperatures, and which has been predicted by scientists, whether one accepts it or not. This is something which is very, very factual. Yes, it is very, very realistic indeed. Global warming now is a phenomenon in the world, and it is as a result of part of the human activities that leads to the damaging of our environment. Now, we can all attest to the fact that temperatures in the world then and temperatures in the world now completely differs. Yes. Then the way we used to complain about the hotness of the environment or the coldness of the environment is not like today. So that is all about this global warming, which is now part and parcel of us, and it is likely that in fact it has come to stay, because we are not seeing any sign that it can be completely stopped. because part of its core cause is industrialization, the encouraging of industrial activity. So industrial activity, even though it also gives economic progress or expansion of a particular country, but it has other problems to the environment as well. Accidents also during air transportation is another effect. There can be accidents during air transportation. Causes respiratory diseases rather. It causes respiratory diseases. What are some of those respiratory diseases? Yes, one is bronchitis. The others are tuberculosis, yes, and even asthma and so on and so forth. So it even causes that. But where the environment is quite conducive, the oxygen quality is good, obviously some of these effects or problems will be so minimized. In fact, in some places, you hardly notice some of the effects. What are some of the measures that can be taken to reduce air pollution? Among them are, one, reduction in carbon emissions. We need to reduce the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, the emission of harmful gases into the atmosphere like the methane, the oxides of nitrogen, etc., etc. Carbon monoxide, which is usually contained in the engines of vehicles. All these are harmful gases. Next one is legislation against pollution, like making laws at the National Assembly. That will also minimize the problem of air pollution. Next is use of alternative energy sources. Use of alternative energy sources. What are those alternative energy sources? Like the use of the improved cooking stoves. When you use the improved cooking stove, this has a very little damage or effect, negative effect to our environment, instead of the use of wood from the forest, the use of fuel wood. So it's among the measures that can be taken. And the next one is through sensitization, environmental sensitization or education, which is partly done by media houses. It is also done by the teachers in various schools, especially in the social and environmental studies lessons, in general science lessons, and in other subjects that has some link with environmental issues. Then next is deforestation. Now, what is deforestation? Which is also a very common environmental problem in the Gambia. Now, it is the cutting down of trees and other plants without replacement. The cutting down of trees and other plants without replacement, which is a common practice in all the 66 forest parks in the Gambia. As we move further, we can see an image of a deforested vegetation. What are you seeing here? You are seeing some lumps of trees. You can see some trunks of trees that has been cut either by an axe or by a machine, and part of this practice is done in order to get timber, wood, fuel wood, etc., etc. People usually do this practice for various reasons, and part of those reasons is economical. Yes, the fact that they will be getting an income from the practice. On the contrary, it is not helpful to the environment. It is not helpful to the forest cover in which the practice even happened. And if you look at the other image, you are seeing here the forest has been reduced. The forest has been reduced in terms of the number of trees in it by the use of the machine, the cane saw, which cut some of the bigger trees in the forest. Here, what are you seeing here? This is showing us that these trees that have been cut probably is used in getting timber, is used in getting wood. The remains of that is mostly used as a fuel wood by the fuel wood collectors, or some will say firewood. So this is so dangerous to the environment. It is so dangerous to the forest cover. And you remember at the beginning of the lesson, we made mention of part of the importance of the forest. So the moment these practices becomes a habit, obviously series of problems will be part of that environment. Now, this practice, which practice are we talking about here? Is deforestation. This practice is seriously damaging the natural vegetation, especially the North Bank region of the country, which is getting dried. And as it is getting dried, what is the end result? Thus causing desertification. The moment you remove more and more trees in a particular forest, and this cutting down is not encouraged in a form of reforestation. Yes, it's not encouraged in a form of tree growing exercises. Obviously, as time goes on, the end result is going to be desertification. The place will now be a barren land. The place will turn into a deserty area. Yes, one classical example is the Sahara Desert, which is not very far from our region here, even though it is not in the Gambia, but move to Mauritania, it is there. The Sahara Desert is there. You go to Mali. Remember, these are our neighboring countries. When we say neighbor, it's not only Senegal. It's not only your closest country. No, Mali is our neighbor. Mauritania is our neighbor. So they are not very far from us. So the moment this continuous cutting down of trees becomes the order of the day, becomes the practice in a particular environment, obviously the end result will be desertification. And that is another harmful problem. When this desertification happens, this will force people to leave the place. People will be forced to move and live and go to a favorable environment. And that also has a series of negative consequences. Now, another effect is, what are some of the causes of this deforestation or reasons for deforestation? Now, among the reasons, we have charcoal production. Why people cut down trees, either from a forest or from the nearby bush. Part of it is charcoal production. Another cause is bushfires. Bushfires. Sometimes which is known, sometimes it is unknown. You cannot tell who is the cause of it. Next is fuel wood collection. Fuel wood collection, or you say firewood collection. Shifting cultivation or growing of crops on the same piece of land year after year. So that also encourages deforestation. Sometimes farmers will prefer relocating their farms to a new land. So in that instance, deforestation is encouraged. The farmer will be clearing the land, and in the clearing of that particular land, the bigger trees, some of the bigger trees on that land will be cut, either by using an axe or even using a machine in order to save your time and energy. The next thing is lumbering, which is also happening, especially in a classical forest area. Yes, for example, in Kenya, it is happening there. This lumbering activities is going on in Nigeria, in Guinea, even our closest neighbor in Senegal, the region located in the southern part of Senegal, which is the Casamance. This lumbering is continuously going on there. Some of the wood or some of the timber which is imported into the Gambia has its origin in the southern Senegal, which is the Casamance. So this lumbering activity is also very hazardous to the environment, which has a link with deforestation. So in short, lumbering is defined as the cutting of bigger trees in the forest for business, mainly. That is the main reason for lumbering. Next is overgrazing of the land by farm animals. Yes, overgrazing of the land by farm animals. People who own livestock, the cattle, sheep, goat, pigs, the guinea fowl, the goose, the gander, the ostrich, you name them. Yes, so some of all these farm animals usually get their source of living or their survival from the environment. They all get their source of food from the environment. So overgrazing is another problem which is part and parcel of the environment, leading to environmental damage. What are some of the effects of deforestation? An environment which is deforested, the following effects, the following results will be part of that environment. The first one says disappearance of flora and fauna. In other words, the plants cover of that particular environment will be reduced. The species of animals in that particular environment too will be reduced. Here we can give a classical example of the Abuko Nature Reserve. The Abuko Nature Reserve in 1950 compared to the Abuko Nature Reserve in 2020 is completely different. Today, if you go to the Abuko Nature Reserve, some of the animals you will be seeing will be the hyena, the wild vultures, yes, just very few, yes. Animals like the tiger, the lion, the elephant, the zebra, antelopes, you hardly see those animals in the Abuko Nature Reserve. So all is as a result of what? Deforestation. Because the tree contents in the forest in 1950 compared to now is completely different. Not to talk of other regions of the country where there are forests. The next problem or effect will be soil erosion. The more trees that are removed in an area, the more exposed the landscape of that particular environment becomes. In other words, the landscape of that particular country is now going to be exposed. And the moment the land is exposed, what is going to be the next result? Soil erosion will be serious in both the rainy season as well as in the dry season. Next is low agricultural production. Where there is deforestation, low agricultural production. In other words, low returns. There will be low profit at the end of the farming activities. It's another effect. Another result still is low rainfall. Like one of the places where more rainfall is usually received is Brikama in the West Coast region. Now, why is that particular place receiving more rainfall during the rainy season? Yeah, it is ascribed to the forest cover in the area. Yes, it is ascribed to the forest cover. It's associated with the forest cover of Brikama. So if you move to another place, which is the opposite, where there is no forest, where there are lesser trees, obviously the rainfall patterns of that particular area is not going to be as high as expected. And if that happens, it's going to have a negative impact on farming activities and even on the livestock owned by man. Next is drought, which is a long period without rain. That is also going to be another effect. And of course, low agricultural productivity. Low agricultural productivity. Now, these are some of the importance of our vegetation cover, some of the importance of our forests. Remember, we talked about deforestation, removal of trees in a forest, cutting down of trees, an indiscriminate way for that matter. Now, on the opposite, if a forest is preserved, cutting down of trees is not encouraged. The forest is well managed, both by the communities, both by the government of the day, forestry officials, you name them. Any good fellow which lives in that particular area, obviously now some of these things will be part and parcel of that particular environment. Windbreaker, where there is a good forest, yes, the moment a powerful wind moves, obviously the speed of that particular wind will be reduced. And the moment the speed of a wind reduces, this can prevent people's houses, people's structures from being damaged. And where there are many trees, herbal medicine is also made available. Next is where there is a forest or there are forests, obviously it will influence rainfall. Yes, it is expected that that particular place will get more downpour of rain. It will get rainfall as expected. And another benefit of it is fencing, roofing, and even construction of our houses. If you look at most of our houses, yes, most of our houses, look at their roofs. most of their roofing materials is obtained from the forest. So that is another importance of the forest. It's another classical importance of the forest. So imagine in an environment where there is no forest at all. So some of these importance or benefits will not be enjoyed by the people in that particular environment. Now viewers, this brings us to the end of our today's lesson. Before we call it a day, this is the assignment, and the first question reads, which of the following is a disaster damaging our environment? Which of the following is a disaster damaging our environment? A, earthquakes, B, tsunami, C, pollution, and D, volcanic eruption. Question 2, imagine you visited the brewery industry. What do you see? Yes, let me repeat that question. It's a very important question indeed. So make sure you do your research, and come next lesson, we will share the information together. Imagine you visited the brewery industry. For example, Gambega, or Alaji Sankonsila and Sons industry, or be it any industry in a community in which you live. For example, the one in Brikama, Jar Oil Cement Factory, or the Brikama Powerhouse. Now, if you visit those places, for example, apart from a brewery industry, if you visit those places, just tell us, what do you see? Yes, what do you see? So that is going to be our next correction exercises. Next question, categorize the following forms of environmental degradation under natural and human factors. Now, here are environmental degradation practices, but they are all mixed together. We are now going to classify them. Which one is natural and which one is human? Which one is natural and which one is human? And I read them: mining, pollution, erosion, bush burning, deforestation, earthquakes. Those are the natural and human factors. So you have to classify them. Come next lesson, we do our correction exercises. So once again, viewers, that marks the end of our today's lesson. So I thank you for the viewing, and once again, I am Bakari MC Sane. Until we meet again in our next lesson, thank you all.